Okay, welcome everybody to our public meeting for Thursday, April 27th. Would you please join me in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Do we have any public announcements?
Green means go. Travis Mateer, 23-year Missoula resident. Just wanted to make an announcement of my successful removal of a meth den. I call it a kind of shanty shack meth den is my colloquial term for it, and this was behind Missoula College. It's been very educational for me to get back into a level of work that re-familiarizes me with the jurisdictional challenges and quite frankly, the community frustration that is simmering. So on Saturday, Earth Day, a few of the helpful people, one gentleman came down really looking for violence that day. He wanted to find the person involved in that encampment and run them off in a manner that they would not return. I put him to work because I don't like vigilantism. Another person that helped me that day was a homeless man, 3 weeks sober, trying to figure out how to keep his clothes clean, find work, and not stay at any of the scary shelters, according to him. And he helped me identify the individual that operates this encampment, former encampment. He's no longer there. He's actually at this green tent by Russell Bridge. His craftsmanship is impressive. My one-day cleanup turned into 2 and then 3. I spent $1,000 of my own money for the dumpster. I'm pretty confident that will be comped in some way. But we need to have conversations when we talk about endangered rivers like the Clark Fork. We need to talk about why they're endangered, not just Smurfit Stone. The thousands of glass tubes I cleaned up, along with other volunteers, some of whom we sent back down the river because they were wearing chacos, not appropriate footwear for cleaning up a meth lab. I've also communicated with law enforcement and sent them helpful pictures of the chemicals involved that I found. So very excited to post some video footage later today. But Travis's Impact Fund is kicking some butt. I hope I can say that.
Yeah.
It's $750 right now, but I think you guys could all help it make it more by individual personal donations on your private time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Travis.
Commissioner Slotnick, if I can pop in and do the closed captioning.
Oh, please do.
Yep.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. If you are joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you are joining us in person, we will have a closed captioning on all the screens here in the Sophie and Louise room. And we also have assisted listening devices available. Please come to me if you would like an assisted listening device, and we will get one for you. We ask that all speakers today please remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. There will be multiple chances during the meeting for the public comment virtually. During those times, if you would like to speak, we ask that you use the raise hand feature if you are on Microsoft Teams. This is a little hand button. If you are calling in on the phone, you need to hit *5 to raise your hand. Then once called on, you will need to hit *6 to unmute. If you have any questions or concerns, please find me during the meeting and let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Laksha. We have a proclamation. Oh, I get around mid-orange eating.
Okay. So this is our proclamation, Missoula County, Montana, whereas the term victim is more than just a label and has legal standing and protections. And whereas the Crime Victims' Right Act, passed here in Montana and at the federal level, guarantees victims the right to meaningfully participate and use their voice in the criminal justice process. And whereas victim service providers, advocates, law enforcement officers, prosecutors, and other allied professionals help survivors find their justice by upholding these rights. And whereas including and elevating the voices of survivors ensures that they are heard and seen while forging and sustaining community trust. And whereas engaging survivors creates responses and services that are meaningful, empowering, and centered on individual needs. And whereas survivors' experiences can serve as a catalyst for implementing innovative programs, shifting existing programs in new directions, and changing policies or practices that prevent survivors from accessing services or pursuing justice. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to listening to survivors of violence in every space where decisions are made that could impact them. And whereas the Missoula County Community Justice Department Crime Victim Advocate Division and YWCA of Missoula, the University of Montana Student Advocacy Resource Center, Project Beacon of All Nations Health Center, and First Step are hereby dedicated to amplifying the voices of survivors and creating an environment where survivors have the confidence that they will be heard, believed, and supported. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Missoula County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the week of April 23rd to 29th, 2023 as Crime Victims' Rights Week, reaffirming Missoula's commitments to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime during Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and expressing our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so that they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, safety, and peace. We ask that you volunteer, donate, or otherwise support the aforementioned agencies. Dated this day, 27th of April, 2023, your Missoula County Commissioners, Josh Slotnick, Dave Strohmeyer, Juanita Barrow.
Thanks a lot, Juan.
Thanks.
Any public comment on items not on the agenda?
Hi, my name's Dave Everingham. Appreciate you guys serving on the commission. I got great respect for what you do. Skiing's over, so I have time to come in. You can listen to me chirp now. It was a good year. Anyway, you love the Missoulian, so do I. I wrote this in December 2022, finding solutions to the tax system. I love your little writings in here. Montana's tax system is outdated. This is you guys quoting what you guys wrote. Montana's tax system is outdated and local government can no longer rely on tax revenue from lumber mills and other industries with large property footprints. Our economy has shifted and with it, the tax burden. Mayor Hess quoted in the paper, our property tax system was built on an economy that just doesn't exist anymore. 85% of lumber mills closed 40 years ago. Now massive commercial businesses occupy the space except for White Pine. Missoula City is occupying that space now. Missoula City has grown from 33,000 to 75,000 people in that time. The county is 110,000. Tech businesses are a much bigger industry in Missoula than lumber mills. Reserve Street, Brooks, and Broadway and Expressway have grown to massive proportions. There are 3 times the houses in Missoula City and County since the 1980 lumber mill. Our economy is more robust and bigger than ever. There are many times more motels in Missoula than ever before. Our tax basis has grown 5 times larger than 40 years ago. We should have plenty of money and then some. Missoula Redevelopment Agency, Land Banking, Land Trust, and some nonprofits have eroded our tax basis. Every time the city or county buys land, we lose tax revenue. Missoula Redevelopment Agency total assets from 2020 to 2021 increased 2.8 million. Total liabilities increased from 7.8 million. Total revenues in 2021 were 11.4 million. Expenses were 16.3 million. A $4.8 million loss. June 2021. In 2021, MRA paid 1.95 million in interest on their loans. That's almost $2 million. Money given away to projects needs to stop. A few of their projects include East Front Street Student Housing, 3.2 million given away. The Merck Motel, 3.6 million. Stockman Bank, 1.5 million. Scott Street, 6.6 million. AC Motel, 1.8 million. First Interstate Bank, 1.3 million. Mary Avenue Southgate, 7 million. Brett's RV, like Brett's needs some money. Consumer Direct, 1.3 million. Reserve Street Footbridge, 5 million, which I think was a great project. Money well spent. Five 5.4 million Oat Sawmill District, 4.8 million MRL property, which sits empty, not generating any tax revenue. This is all lost tax revenue that will only be realized in 25 years. In the meantime, my taxes have gone up from 2006 at $3,700 to $6,700 in 2020. Special assessments were $17 in 2006. We only had 2. Now there is 8 of them at $742. MRA receives $11.4 million from city taxes every year. We are handing out money to rich developers and giant banks. We need to slow this down or stop it. It does me no good. Land trusts are not fair to people paying full price on property taxes. We all need to pay our fair share. Property taxes for city went from $1,067 in 2006 to $1,700 in 2020. County taxes went from $696 to $1,400 in the same period. That's double. But there's no money to fix bridges. School taxes have gone from $2,000 to $2,700. I like schools. In the same period, last year, City Council cut all funding for Parks and Rec. So their special assessment went from $142 to $305 in 1 year. It more than doubled. City Road District was non-existent in 2006. In 2022, its assessment was $247 a year. Our local government is a money-eating monster with an uncontrollable appetite. Our city and county is and has grown exponentially. The new growth should pay for all the extra taxes, but instead our tax money is diverted and special assessments are added. Can't blame the state's broken tax system for that, or the lumber mill's not going. Bonner Mill is as big as ever, but the owners of that mill, that property, got $2 million of tax increment funding from the county for toxic waste cleanup that had been there for 100 years. So the rich owners got $2 million and I got a bigger tax bill. Our local government needs to look in the mirror and quit blaming the state for our local tax hikes. There's a little bit of blame there. MRA just spent $350,000 to research a 126-year-old piece of junk bridge to see if it is feasible to spend $4 million on it for an unneeded footbridge. So I was wondering if I could get $12,000 of TIF money to paint my house and maybe spend $1,500 on it to do a feasibility study. MRA Board of Trustees is handing out money like it grows on trees. And some my way. Our local governments are in debt beyond belief. Someone needs to act like a businessman and manage the city like a business. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. All right, our current claims list. Claims received as of March 31st, 2023 to April 17th, 2023 by the Commissioner's Office total $3,858,546.04. Today we have 2 hearings. We are going to switch the schedule because one of them is short and one's long, and we're going to do the short one first on Get It Out of the Way. This is the Creighton Major Subdivision, and Tim Worley, our senior planner, will present.
Thank you. Tim Worley, senior planner with Planning, Development, and Sustainability. I'll be really short this afternoon. This is Creighton Subdivision, which originally came to you all in August of 2022. The applicant requested more time to do a geotechnical analysis regarding channel migration and the erosion hazard risk at this particular location. Just some basics of the subdivision. It is a proposal for 8 residential lots and 1 utility lot in the target range neighborhood near Clements and 3rd Street. The applicant is requesting another extension to June 22nd, 2023 to allow for more time to do geotechnical analysis regarding the erosion hazard issue. And I've talked with the admin folks about getting things scheduled for that date and moving all the information to that date. So I believe that's date certain when there will be a quorum of the Board of County Commissioners. So that is the request of Montana Northwest Company that we move this to the 22nd of June.
Now, do we need to do a motion vote on such a thing?
And I guess, Commissioners, I would take public comment if there's, I know there's some
Thank you.
folks here.
Thank you. Any public comment on keeping the Creighton subdivision open? Or on any aspect of it? Thank you.
Sure. My name is Ann Rupp Calvis. I'm a Target Range resident. I just would say using that stretch of road many, many days, I'm not sure what the final plan is, and I don't have my glasses on, but I would hope that there wouldn't be ingress and egress off of Clements Road, because that's a difficult area to have people screaming around that corner, particularly in the winter, and then approaching a car. In fact, just last night, coming from school to home on Clements, somebody had come out of a driveway on Clements, 2 cars, and they each had their flashers on because they said, and they were from Oregon, they said this is a difficult place to get on. It's a hard driveway to come out onto Clements on. And I thought, well, not as hard as this would be. So I just would ask that you consider the reality of coming in and out of anything, should it be developed, onto Clements.
Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. Any other comment on Creighton subdivision? Have a guest.
Just a couple days ago, I talked with a woman who was raised further west on 7th. Her parents still have property that adjoins the river. In a recent flood event, those people, her folks, lost 1.5 acres of ground to the river from the back side of their property. They are on 7th, not as far as Humble. So kind of near this. I don't get out and walk it, so I'm not quite sure what the river does where. But anyway, so I'm glad they're studying a little more.
Thanks. We have a raised hand.
Yes, I was just going to let you know, Kim from the public, she'd like to speak. Go ahead, Kim. To unmute, you have to hit stars.
There we go.
Kim, you can either email us or you can, the meeting will be on June 22nd if you'd like to attend.
So in terms of action we take right now. Okay, we will just table Creighton subdivision till June 22nd. All right, thanks. Okay, the next one is on impact fees, and our own Chris Lounsbury will present.
So commissioners, actually, we have a guest with us today. Colin from Tischler Weiss is here to do the first part of it, and then I will finish up. So I'm going to allow Colin to come up and walk you through the report that their company has done after completing their study. And I'm Going to get that up on the screen here.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll just sort of direct you to go through slides. Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners. Again, Colin McElweeny with Tischler Buys. We have quite a bit of information in front of you, but I'm trying to keep it short. So keeping it high level. We will open up for questions though, if there's any. Next slide. Okay, yeah, so here's the agenda. Quite a bit to get through, so I'll try and do my best. I'm sort of long-winded sometimes, so I apologize ahead of time. Next slide. So impact fees. These are one-time payments that new construction pays to offset their new demand on infrastructure. So this is a fee on new subdivisions, new commercial development, not on a remodel of a home, or if a business were to move into an existing structure. This is on new development to help mitigate their new demand on your facilities. Really not a tax, it's more of a contractual agreement between the county and the fee payer. In this case, if they pay the fee, the county is agreeing to provide new infrastructure, expanding your parks, let's say, or public safety facilities to accommodate that growth. Through this study, and it's a lengthy one, the report, I think it's some 90 pages, but we show a three-pronged nexus. So there has to be a need, showing that your facilities are at capacity, and any new folks that come in are going to necessitate expansion of those facilities to keep up with your levels of service. We have to show benefit, and we do that both through sort of the administering of the program. So we want to ensure that you're collecting the dollars and using them in a timely fashion. And then in some cases, in this case, when we have a large geography, we sometimes slice it into different service areas to ensure that when there's a new construction of an infrastructure, that's benefiting those in the area. And then lastly, the fee has to be proportionate. So we're only looking at growth-related costs, capital costs. And I should mention there's no personnel costs here. There's no maintenance costs. There's no replacement of infrastructure. This is cost for new infrastructure that's growth related. And then you'll also see in the fee schedule itself, there's different land uses to ensure that retail is paying its fair share compared to single family development compared to multifamily development. Next slide. Yeah, so touched on this a little bit. So again, we're only honing in on the cost for facilities, new facilities or expansion of facilities. If you've oversized a facility to accommodate growth, growth can pay into that extra capacity. A common occurrence is like a wastewater treatment plant. You might have a 40-year horizon, and you can peg that impact fee for gross share of that new facility. We can't use this for maintenance repairs, and we can't use this for operating costs. Next slide. So in Montana, there's a couple requirements here to ensure that you're using impact fees properly. So we need to have a capital improvement plan, and you're going to see that in the study. These studies have to be updated every 5 years. So if this gets approved, you'll see me again in 5 years to do a comprehensive update. We're only looking at improvements that have a 10-year useful life or longer. We also have to have a development impact fee advisory committee. So that's a group of at least 5 folks in the community, at least 2 from the development industry to supervise the study, but they'll also meet at least once a year to review the financials of the special revenue funds, which these dollars will go into. In Montana, we can collect these for utilities, transportation, stormwater, and public safety. And we can collect for other infrastructure types as long as we have a unanimous vote by the county commissioners. And lastly, we can collect a 5% administration fee to ensure we're keeping the program whole and that we're supporting the personnel to support it. Next slide. Here's just sort of a general outline of the impact fee study process. So it's sort of been a lengthy study. We've talked with your department staff a handful of times to understand their current demand, but also their plans to accommodate future growth. We've looked at different methodologies, what's best in these cases, also credits to ensure that we're not double dipping growth, that they're only paying their fair share. We calculate the fee. We've reviewed that and got input by the advisory committee. And now we're at the last step here for the adoption process. Demographics, I'll just run through this real quickly. Next slide. So you're going to see two sort of sections, first countywide and then unincorporated, just so you get a sense of where the growth is happening. So this is the 10-year projection for countywide, Missoula countywide. Over the next 10 years, we're projecting 12,000 new residents or 4,500 new homes. In the unincorporated side, that's 4,400 new residents. So of that 12,000, 4,400 will be in unincorporated area, and that's 1,600 new homes. On the job side, countywide, we're projecting about 15,000 new jobs over the next 10 years. And that gets us 6.4 million square feet of new non-residential floor area. So that's retail, industrial, institutional like healthcare or schools and office buildings as well. On the next slide. On the unincorporated, so just looking at those areas outside of the city, that's 4,000 new jobs and 2 million new square feet of non-residential floor area. Okay, so we have a handful of categories to go through. Luckily, we're sort of using the same methodology for a lot of these, so I'll sort of explain what you're seeing for general government, and then that'll help sort of flow through the other categories. Next slide. So we're using what's called an incremental expansion approach. And that essentially just encapsulates what you're providing today to your current residents. If we adopt the fee, you're essentially committed to providing what you are providing today to future residents tomorrow. This is looking at county-wide demand. So those that live in the unincorporated area, but also those that live within the city, because they're also using county general government facilities. And it's assessed on both non-residential and residential development. So here's sort of a laundry list of your general government facilities. So we have, the courthouse building, some storage buildings, health department, risk management buildings, and that totals 116,000 square feet. Looking at your insurance valuation report, those buildings are valued at about $27 million. In the middle of that figure is a level of service calculation. So we portion out that facility space, the square footage, to 69% residential and 31% non-residential demand. We compare that to the current population and jobs to get the current level of service in the first green line. So that's 0.53 square feet, thank you, per person and 0.44 square feet per job. Those levels of service are then multiplied by the average cost of these facilities of $234 per square foot to get the capital cost per person and job at the bottom there. And you'll see that show up right here in your fee schedule. So we only have sort of one component of the general government fee. Net total there is $124 per person or $103 per job. And that is then multiplied by our demand factors for different land use types. So on the left is the non-residential fee schedule. You're seeing industrial, institutional, retail, and office. Using the density factors, you can see there's about 1.6 jobs per 1,000 square feet for industrial. That goes up to 2.97 for office. So those job factors are then multiplied by that net cost to get the maximum supportable fee amounts in the green, and that's per 1,000 square feet. Then on the right-hand side is the residential fee schedule, and that is based on the size of the home, the square footage of the dwelling unit. And we're using local census data here to understand as the home grows in size, so does the number of people in that home, and proportionally their demand on your facilities grows as well. So you're seeing an increase in the maximum supportable fee amounts there. Smallest of homes was at $138 per square foot, or sorry, per unit. Yeah. And then average home about $340 per unit. And then your largest of homes, which is 4,000 square feet or higher, would be $456 per unit. Importantly, we again, we were looking at your county-wide demand because even those that live in the city are still using county facilities. To ensure that you maximize your impact fee program, you'll need to collect your county impact fees within the city. The impact fees are paid during the building permit when that's issued. And so you're seeing here a figure that shows a comparison. If we were only to collect in unincorporated areas, that would get us just about $1 million over 10 years. Based on your current levels of service today and that projected growth, to keep up with that pace, there's $10 million in need to expand your general government facilities. So there would be a $2 million gap here if we were just collecting in the unincorporated areas. If we're able to come together with the city and collect county impact fees within the city, you would be able to collect about $3 million. We have about $3 million in need, so we're able to offset our growth-related capital costs here. And you're going to see this figure show up in every single chapter, just to sort of drive home the point that to ensure you're collecting as much as you can, the county and the city will have to come together to put together an IGA. Next slide. Okay, so sheriff. This is going to be very similar. We're looking at incremental expansion approach, so just sort of looking at current facilities, comparing that to current demand, and we also have calls for service data to proportion out that demand. And you're seeing that show up here. So we were working with the sheriff's office to get calls for service, annual calls for service, and you can see that breakdown where there's about 44% to residential, 34% to non-residential land uses, and 22% to traffic. We then portion out the traffic calls based on your vehicle trips within the county. And so finally at the bottom there, we got 60% of the demand coming from residential land uses and 40% coming from non-residential. Here's the level of service calculation. So we have 3 facilities or 54,000 square feet, $10 million in value. That is then using that 60-40 split to get the level of service in the first green line. That level of service is then multiplied by the average cost per square foot to get $39 per person or $22 per non-residential vehicle trip. We're including detention centers here in the study. That's 129,000 square feet or $29 million in value. Level of service calculation here, that's 50.51 square feet per person. That's then multiplied by that cost to get $115 per person or $65 per trip. Here is the fee schedule for the sheriff. Looks very similar to what we just saw in the general government. So we have the net total, in that first figure there. Non-residential fee schedule below that. Again, these are the maximum supportable amounts that the study has resulted in. Retail generating the highest demand in public safety, so you're going to see the highest fee there for retail, and that goes down to industrial, $216 per 1,000 square feet. Same structure here on the residential side, so the smallest homes, $171 per unit, about $400 for an average single-family home, and $560 for the largest of homes over 4,000 square feet. Again, importantly, the sheriff is providing service not just to unincorporated areas, but within the city as well. So you're seeing the funding gap. If we're only able to collect within the unincorporated areas, that's $1.6 million. There's $5.6 million in need, so about a $4 million gap there. In the case that we're able to come together with the city, there's about 5.5 collected, about 5.5 over 10 years. So we're able to offset our capital costs over the next 10 years. Emergency management, a little bit different here, but very similar. Next slide. We have the calls for service here. So we're looking at the whole, not just the sheriff, but also all the different fire departments as well, and actually the police as well, because dispatch takes those calls. So you're seeing a total split here of 53% residential and 43% non-residential. Slide. Now we have OEM's share at the courthouse, about 16,000 square feet. So you're seeing current levels of service being calculated, capital cost at the bottom there. And then this is going to look new. This is a different methodology. It's called a plan-based approach. And at the time that we started the study, they had a feasibility report of the digital communication system upgrades that are necessary. That's $15 million in cost. And you're seeing the proportion out on the right-hand side. Importantly, this communication system is going to be serving growth, but also folks within the county today. So you were only able to get 7% of gross share on the residential side and 20% gross share on the non-residential side. So this project won't be fully funded by impact fees, only the gross share, which is a small portion of it. Here's the fee schedule. So we have retail at $660 per 1,000 square feet, industrial $114, average home about $200, a little less than $200, and largest of homes $250. Again, sort of beating a dead horse here, but if we're not able to collect within the city, there's about $2 million in growth-related costs that we're not able to recover through the impact fees. If we are able to collect, we're breaking even there. Okay, so shared use pass, another wrinkle is we're looking at service areas. Next slide. So we're looking at your shared use pass, but in this case, development, let's say in Sealy Lake, we want to ensure that they receive a benefit from if the impact fee is paid. And if we only were to construct shared use pass, let's say in Lolo area, then folks aren't driving from Sealy Lake down to Lolo to use those pass. So we have to separate that out because there's more of a localized benefit zone for this infrastructure type. So you're seeing 5 zones here, really trying to hone in on that benefit and proportionality of our nexus. So just to give you an example, so we've done a level of service calculation for all 5 of those zones. Don't need to go through all of them. So I'm just showing one example here, and this is the East Missoula Bonner area, where there's about 4 miles there today. The current population right now, or in 2021, was 6,300 residents. So you have the level of service there. Current costs were $475,000 per mile. So you got a capital cost of $304. And so the results are showing up here. So different levels of service in each area, just based on the population and the miles within that zone. So you're seeing that show up in the green for the cost per person. So we're hovering about $300 per person, except in the central area where the city of Missoula is, and that's essentially you can see that the highest population center. So the level of service is slightly lower there. And then trying to make it simple here, but there's a lot of numbers. This is all 5 zones and the maximum supportable fee amounts, still using the same persons per household, but then that's multiplied by those different cost factors. What was it? Central is the lowest of about, let's say $250 for an average size home, and that goes up to about $1,000 for development in Lolo. Again, we're able to collect about $900,000 outside of town. There's about $1.5 million in need. So there would be a funding gap here if we're not able to collect within the city, and breaking even if we are. Parks and Recreation, very similar to shared use pass, where we're looking at the level of service within those different service areas. We also are looking at regional parks as well. So there's sort of a couple, just go to that slide. No, you're fine. Trying to whip through here. So there's 2 regional types of parks which are providing county-wide benefits. So we can look at the county-wide and assess this county-wide. So you're looking at park acres here, park improvements and the current cost to replace those. Level of service county-wide in the first screen. Last screen is the capital cost. I should mention that the county does have the parkland dedication program, where developments are turning over land according to that policy. So we're not including park land in this fee program. So this is only for park improvements, which are swing sets, ball fields, gazebos, picnic tables, those items. So here's the service areas for your neighborhood community parks. Then just an example of the level of service. This is Bonner East Missoula. So you're seeing 26 improvements there. Again, the 6,300 residents. So you have a level of service and capital cost. Then we break that down for the 5 service areas and then your regional countywide parks. So you're seeing that in the green. Importantly, we need to include a credit when there's other revenues coming in for these capital projects or infrastructure that we've included. And in this case, the county's issued debt for the Fort Missoula project. That goes out to 2037. So we portion that out to residential, non-residential tax base. And so the residential credit is $124 per person. And that shows up in the fee schedule. Again, so driving home the Bonner East Missoula example, that's a total of $545 per person. And I think the next slide will give us a comparison. Yep. So very similar to the shared use pass. So we have the different cost factors. Lowest amount being in Frenchtown. That's about $500 per unit for an average size home, up to about $1,500 for those in Bonner East Missoula. Again, there's about $3.5 million in 10-year need, able to collect 1.3 if we just collect outside of the city. We're able to collect 2.7 in this case if we collect in town. And that gap there is from the credit that we include because you have the other property tax coming in. Okay. And then the last item here is for Frenchtown Fire District. So the process for fire districts to collect impact fees is they have to go through the city or county that they serve. So in this case, that's why we're presenting the Frenchtown Fire District impact fees to the county commissioners, because we will need an agreement in place where you will collect on their behalf when that building permit is issued, and then transfer those funds quarterly or monthly to ensure that they're completing their programs. So in Frenchtown, we're projecting an increase of 16% population in the next 10 years and 19% in jobs. Very similar methodologies that we're going to show here. Next slide. So we got call data. So 76% of their demand is coming from residential locations and 24% from non-residential locations. You're seeing there, how many stations is that? 8 stations, 36,000 square feet. Level of service showing in that first screen. Capital cost found by combining the level of service and construction costs. Next slide. Oh, I did. Sorry. Losing it. So we can also collect for apparatuses in this case because they have a useful life for 10 years or longer. So they have a fleet of about 20 units. Levels of service shown here and capital cost. Here's the maximum supportable fee amounts, again, for just the Frenchtown district. So this would only be applicable to new construction in Frenchtown. Seeing the cost for the non-residential, or the maximum supportable fee amounts, I should say, showing up $4,000 per 1,000 square feet for retail, about $600 for industrial development, and then average size home there, about $2,200 per unit. Nicely, in this case, if they're able to collect the maximum amounts, we get a nice 0 showing that the projected revenue at the maximum levels are able to offset those 10-year capital cost needs. This is a breakdown of those needs. So in 10 years, they would need to expand their facilities by about 6,000 square feet and add 3.4 new units, so not replacement, but new units to their fleet. Okay, summary pages. Because we have those different service areas, you're going to see a sort of a complicated figure because we have those countywide impact fees like general government and sheriff in an office of emergency management, but then it has to be broken down because of the parks and trails. So you're seeing that show up. What in the central area would be the lowest fee of $1,779 per unit, and that goes up to about $3,200 in Bonner. You're seeing the non-residential here. What about 2,200, 2,100 per 1,000 square feet of retail development and $500 for industrial development. So this then combines your county fees with the Frenchtown fire, just to give you a sense of where that would lie for those in Frenchtown. So in total, on average across the board, that would be $2,600 for an average sized home. If that were to occur in Frenchtown, that would be $4,800 per unit. Importantly, if you follow impact fees, there was some bills, that sort of were working its way through the Capitol here. SB 142 would have thrown a lot of wrenches, as it was originally written, would have thrown a lot of wrenches in our impact fee studies, but it's been amended. And so really what's left is just added language for procedures on accounting for the revenues and the special funds, how to credit back in case you don't use these funds at an appropriate time, and credit in just further language of land dedication and facility construction. So from our perspective, this really just ensures, it's sort of best practices for impact fees and doesn't throw any real curveballs for the study itself. So some discussion points. What I presented was the 100% maximum supportable fees from the study. You can adopt a lower amount, but it would have to be across the board. So we can't just sort of cherry pick a certain development type to do the reduction. It'd have to be for all development. You can include a grace period or phasing of these fees. You're allowed affordable housing exemption as well. So you would have to put together a policy that states what affordable housing is, and if folks build to that standard, they could get those impact fees waived. Importantly is the impact fee program still has to be made whole. So any exemption is made, those dollars would have to come from another revenue source. You can include a 5% administration fee, which I haven't shown here, or up to 5%, I should say. You can also include an annual adjustment for inflation. That's a good way to sort of keep up the fee rates between the 5-year updates, so you're at least trying to stay at pace with construction costs. Drove home the point about the IGA between the county and the city, the importance there, and also there's going to have to be an IGA between the county and Frenchtown Fire to ensure that those fees are being collected. The study has been recommended by the advisory committee. I haven't noted that here, and I think there's a letter there in your packet that states their recommendations. And so that is it for my slides.
Thanks, Colin.
Yes.
So commissioners, I would say if you have questions for Colin, this would be a great time for those. And then I will walk you through the recommendations that came from the Citizen Impact Fee Advisory Board.
Great.
And then at that point, I would formally ask you to open the public comment period.
Great. Thanks.
I just had go ahead.
Go, you go.
Definition question, and it was one of your earlier slides about infrastructure. So does broadband or electrical, like how does that fit into the definition?
That's a good question. So, again, the legislation says you can add any other category as long as you have a unanimous vote by county commissioners. So I don't think you would be limited there if you wanted to put in fiber or something along those lines. Importantly, impact fees tend to not be a magic wand because in that case, there would probably be a portion of those projects that wouldn't be growth related. So you could fund the growth related portion of new fiber or something like that, but there would be probably a significant portion that would be non-growth related from your current residents that you would have to pay through other revenue.
Okay, thanks.
Colin, could you describe the nature of the intergovernmental agreement we'd have to go through with the city?
Yeah, so come together, they are able to include their own sort of admin fee as well to this to sort of sweeten the pot, I would say. But it's really straightforward. I mean, the county fees would just fit within, the bill that you get during building permit time.
Okay.
It would line up just with the city impact fees as well. So I haven't been in the room during those discussions, but the attorneys get involved there to get that agreement put together.
Is there a standard percentage for admin that's generally accepted?
Typically it's a flat fee. So it might be
Okay.
like $20 per permit that the city would be able to get. That's sort of the max I've seen. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. So while this pulls up here really quick, commissioners. There we go. So as you know, commissioners, you formed an impact fee advisory board to look at this. That's part of the process as Colin laid out. So we engaged Tischler Bice back in 2021, and that is also when we first put together the impact fee advisory board. As part of that process, we included hiring a firm to do some outreach around impact fees and gather some information, talk to community stakeholders about this, and also help us to conduct some public engagement sessions. And those all happened during 2021 and 2022 and culminated in a public event at the Missoula Library. And so your impact fee advisory board, after getting that information from the public outreach, going through the studies with Colin from Tischler Bice, came up with a series of recommendations for the commissioners to consider as part of impact fee adoption. And so I will walk you through those recommendations. The first was that you should hold a public hearing and comment period where the rates were proposed and the study was presented. So that's occurring today. They recommended that you include the 5% administrative fee as part of the impact fee program to help support the administrative duties and costs that come with an impact fee program. They recommended that you pursue an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Missoula to allow the collection of fees inside the city limits. And as you saw from Colin, that does make a significant difference in the ability to afford those capital costs that will come from the growth that's occurring in Missoula County. They also recommended that you provide clear communication and education for several months prior to impact fees going into effect, and their proposal was to hold off on the impact fees being collected until the end of this calendar year. So that would give businesses and folks who are in the middle of a subdevelopment process or other project time to get through that, and also for our development community to plan for these to be part of the costs as they cost out new subdevelopments or other building projects that might occur. They recommended that you consider using and I have gotten this wrong several times, but I think I have it right now, the engineering news record as how you determine the inflationary factor that would be used for that. And the specific recommendation came because that the consumer price index includes lots of goods and services that are not really related to construction costs, where the engineering news record is focused on construction and development costs. And so they felt that was a more accurate reflective tool when considering what inflationary factors should be used. They did recommend that you include a waiver and policy to set aside funding to allow for fees related to affordable housing. And specifically, they wanted you to look at permanently affordable, which should be defined consistently and broadly to include deed-restricted dwellings that serve individuals or families earning less than 60% of the area median income, and for projects that meet the definitions to make them eligible to apply for federal low-income tax credits, and/or projects that contain a component of affordable housing, but those should be considered on a case-by-case basis. They also recommended, at the time, Frenchtown Fire Board was still meeting, but the Frenchtown Fire Board has now recommended to you, and we do have a letter to that effect, that impact fees for the fire district should be recommended when that board made their decision. So the process going forward from here, so if approved by the commissioners, you will adopt a resolution which will create the impact fee ordinance as required by the Montana Code Annotated. The resolution includes both the requirements of the law and then also adopts the impact fee report as drafted by Tischler Bice into it. And the resolution as a draft, because it does not yet reflect public comment that you'll collect over this next period, is available for folks to look at online as well on the commissioner's website and the Missoula County Voice page for it. I'll be asking you today to formally open a public comment period that will run until your meeting on May, I believe it's May 22nd, the last Thursday of the month of May. And you, 25th, I'm sorry, yes, sorry, May 25th. I should have looked at my own slide there. And there are 3 ways that folks can provide comment. Obviously, they can provide it here at a public meeting. They can provide it electronically via email at bcc@missoulacounty.us or through the Missoula County Voice page that's dedicated to impact fees, or by calling the Commissioner's office at 406-258-4877. And so, Commissioners, that's my last slide. And with that, I would ask you to formally open the public comment period for impact fees. We have Colin and myself here to answer questions, and then any comments that come from the public. And then we'd ask you to hold that open for 4 weeks.
I move to open the public hearing on impact fees.
The public comment? I would second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Colin, for all your work. Wow.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Can I just say some other things here? Someone may be listening to this later. All the folks in this room know roughly what I'm about to say. The cost of providing services to new construction are not entirely met by the property taxes of that new construction. New developments are built that require new infrastructure. The costs that aren't covered by the property taxes that come from those homes land on the backs of other residents. This is actually a property tax reduction measure for people who live in Missoula County, so that new development pays for itself. That's the essence of impact fees. New development covers its own costs in terms of new infrastructure, as opposed to those costs landing on the backs of taxpayers. We had a really, really highly skilled and smart impact advisory committee. 2 folks are here today that I'd love to call out, Jim and Chris, and Rick, whose last name ran out of my head. Okay, Rick, who lives in East Missoula, who's on multiple boards. Hall, thank you. And these guys studied this, hung in through a really dense and technical process, and I think came up with some numbers that hit a certain sweet spot. That sweet spot is the cost to the buyer of a new home that has an impact fee on it is such that it doesn't really matter. It's not felt over 30 years, and that cost is still high enough to be felt in the form of property tax reduction on the behalf of folks who live in Missoula County. Does that make sense? So thank you for that. I was expecting more people here, so I asked these guys to come and talk, and then no one's here, so I feel bad for wasting your absolutely valuable time. I owe you lunch. I recognize that. Thank you. Would you want to speak to this at all? Yeah. No.
I was thinking about what comments, Jim Bashan. I think what's important, especially as a person who lives in the county, public comment period. We are open for public comment period, and I think it's really important that people express their voices. And that not goes for people who live in the city and the county, it goes for anybody in the industry, any association, any chamber, they should speak up. And this is the opportunity to do it. We did, I think, as an advisory committee throughout last year, created many opportunities for voices to be heard. And now there's another 30-day window for voices to be heard. So I would encourage everyone not to wait till the very last minute on May 25th, and bring comment forward. Advisory committee is open for feedback, and if we have ways to make it better, we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we good?
So just as a reminder for the members of the public, so this will be open through May 25th. They can again email at bcc@missoulacounty.us or go to the Missoula County Voice page, and they will see impact fees as one of the tiles, and they can ask questions or provide comment there, and that will be incorporated at the May 25th meeting. Or they can call your office, the Commissioner's office, at 406-258-4877.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks again, guys, for coming out. And thanks for your good work, Colin. All right, with that, we are done.
We vote. We was just opening. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Travel safely.
Thank you.
Yeah.